Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's break was well this Christmas. I'm glad that we're all finally able to be back together in some sort of way during this crazy year that has been. But I'm excited to share this lesson about academic language and all the interesting things that I've learned about it over creating this presentation. To start off, I wanted to talk about what does developing an academic language mean. And the first thing that I'm thinking of is just as students come to our school with a particular no matter what classroom it is, they come with some type of prior knowledge and background in the subject matter that we'll be teaching. They also come with some skills in communicating effectively in that environment or the content area. Just as part of the teacher's responsibility it is to help the students further develop their understanding and skills in that content of subject matter. They also have to help students develop their skills in using and understanding the oral discourse, the text types, and the subject-specific vocabulary that are typical in a particular content area. Teachers may use a variety of methods and strategies to both explicitly teach students the norms of academic language in the content area and to help them incorporate these norms in the everyday classroom usage of language. For example, a social studies teacher may highly scaffold the process of constructing an argument based on the historical evidence, how to communicate a thesis in an essay, or how to debate a political point of view. Or an elementary mathematics teacher might help students understand the conventions expected for showing their problem-solving work, how to explain an alternative solution to a problem, or how to interpret mathematical symbols. These are just some ways that developing the academic language in this classroom can help our students be better prepared when moving forward. The next thing I wanted to talk about were 8 strategies for teaching academic language. I found this really great article from edtopia.org that had a list of 8 teaching strategies that related to academic language. I listed the 8 here, but I also wanted to open up the article to show you guys exactly what I was kind of looking at. So to start off, it talked about encouraging students to read diverse texts, which meant reading and thinking and talking about different genres, harder sentences. So just letting these students explore texts that they may not be familiar with to help further that knowledge. Another way was to introduce summary frames. This was something that I didn't really know much about before doing this project. So the way they talked about it was summarizing as simple as and fail-safe approach to academic language activities. So students would read a section of the text to themselves before memorizing it and summarizing it to a partner. So these were the 2 examples they had. Was they would have this little frame here with the blanks and ask the students to summarize it verbally to themselves first and then to a partner, which I thought was super interesting. As well, to help students translate from academic to social language. So the way they're coming in is a very laid back way of speaking, and we want to kind of help them transition from that regular everyday language to incorporating some of the academic language they will be using in class to just say it in a more academic or professional way. So with providing students with difficult words and have them incorporate those with their everyday language. So not just having them do one or the other, it's being able to translate back and forth. The next one was have students complete scripts of academic routines. And this was explained as some discourse routines seems obvious for adults, but some are more complex than NASA for young learners unless you provide some examples like these. So giving them a blank, like the topic of my presentation is blank. The students will be able to professionally not only say what they're wanting to say in a simple sentence such as this, but giving them these same type of scripts that they're able to fill in as they're working on their work or doing something like a presentation, allowing them to feel confident in what they're talking about. The next one being dynamically introduce academic vocabulary. So just kind of when we talked about the academic language earlier, like trying to get our students to speak more professionally, we want to also repeat those words in our classrooms to help our students understand that these are words that we will constantly be using on a day-to-day basis, as well as help students diagram similarities and differences. So giving them things like a Venn diagram, or the example here was Robert Mazzarino's high yield instruction strategies. I think the Venn diagram is something that will be more commonly used and more commonly known in these situations, and allowing them to actually have a visual of what is the same and what is different, and letting them see the difference versus just explaining the difference. And the last two were have students write with the transition handout and teach keywords for understanding standardized test prompts. These are both like the same kind of physical, you're putting a piece of paper down in front of them, allowing them to fill out and read the things you're wanting to teach them. Going back to the PowerPoint, the next thing I really thought was interesting was dimensions of academic language. There are 3 categories that I saw whenever you look up academic language with dimensions, which was the discourse level, the sentence level, and the word and phrase level. So as you can see in this middle box, it talks about general areas of coverage. And so example for the discourse level, you'll be talking about text types, genres, voice and perspectives, etc. And then going off of that, it says with mathematic text types or recipes, it will say what are the directions for the recipe, which is at the discourse level. And then once they understand the directions, you can go to the sentence level, which means you'll not just read the directions, but then you'll add the imperative verbs, which would be the preheat, combine, mix, so on and so on, kind of introducing these not harder words, but more complex to actually being able to successfully complete something as a recipe, to then eventually getting to the word and phrase level, which would be all of the key terms that they could identify, like recipe, ingredients, measuring cup, utensils. You're being very general specific, like you are using these academic words and expressions to allow the students to normalize the situation. And these aren't really considered as levels, more as like you need to do discourse, then sentence, then word phrase. They're more just as they're broken up into 3 different types where you can identify which one you want to target at to be able to use the other, because in reality all 3 are needed to be successful when teaching academic language, and I thought it was interesting just to see this chart broken down. The last thing I wanted to talk about was an example of how to teach an academic language lesson. So I found, again, this article from Berkeley, and I saw this sample lesson that I thought was super interesting. It kind of broke it down into this double triangle, talking about the focus lesson, guided instruction, collaborative, and independent. Teaching, starting off with the I do's, we do it, you do it. So pretty much teaching with, starting off with the teacher and the class, then slowly introducing them into doing this work on their own. And it showed kind of here for the I do's, which was that first focus step with the teacher. It's showing you what 4 you should be focusing on. For example, your spelling, pronunciation, etc. And telling you about how much time you should do this for, as well as giving it what might it look like, giving you a couple examples of what you could use. And then it goes breaking them even further to the teacher explaining the words. They're brief, it's concise, it's easy for the students to understand, they're easy to follow along. And then it breaks you down to the we do's, which was the students practicing the words, so introducing them to do it themselves, and finally getting it to the collaborative and the students engage. So this is kind of starting all the way from they have no idea what they're doing, no idea from hearing these words, to being able to do it on their own. And this was just super easy to understand and fill out. So I thought it was a very good example. Overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this lecture, and I hope it was easy to understand. There was a lot of interesting things that I found about this, and I hope you have a general understanding of how easy and important it is to teach academic language. Thanks, guys.